Hi, I'm Landscaper and this is the Wanna Be Composer series. Today we're doing some house stuff for sync. I've done a few already, done a couple of videos on it. Just briefly before I get started, I want to show you again VSSX, the headphones. Fantastic, very good. I'm happy to rave about them. And for this type of track, I'm using this room. This is not a room that comes with the free version. I do have to buy an add-on pack for this. Got to be honest, it was worth the money. I did wait because I'm a cheapskate until the January sales were out, and then bought it. There you go. What are you gonna do? There's lots of different rooms in here that you can test lots of different tracks and different styles of tracks. So classical stuff, obviously, I tend to use Spitfire Studios. A lot of my orchestration is Spitfire based. But there's lots of other studios you've got here for making dance music, house music. You want to test it, how it's going to sound in a club. All this sort of stuff is available to you. And what I really like is some of these other little rooms that they've got, or other little features. Cell phone, brilliant. Well, you can test how it's going to sound on someone's phone. It's not going to be precise. Different phones have got different speakers. Boombox, who wouldn't want to try it on a boombox? Various cars, etc, etc. Various headphones. But there you go. So anyway, we're using Yellow Matter Studios for this, and we're going to use it on the midfield monitors predominantly to start writing the track. So I tend to approach these tracks, usually I will just create a little loop, 4 bars. I'm running at 126 BPM. I'm doing almost all of them exclusively at 126 BPM for now. I like to start the track with shifting through different sounds on various instruments. I've got Serum 2 now, Omnisphere 3, Massive X, and I'll just pour through the initial either the factory sounds or packs that I've bought or whatever. So just something just sort of fits and sits. I've chosen Serum 2 to start with. I really like Serum. It's very nice sonically. I'm going to look through some pads initially, I think. Maybe get a feel for some chord sequences. With a lot of these synths, I always go through the presets initially, even if you wind up, editing and changing those presets. The top guys will know how to use these synths properly. I am not at that level. I do not have that much time, concentration, or knowledge. So I don't. I pretty much use a preset. If it's close to what I want, brilliant. I'll do a little bit of editing to the sound maybe thereafter, but the people that understand how all of these work can really get some fantastic sounds out of them. It's not where I'm at. I'm going to test a few sounds. They also, the presets are set at different volume levels. So it's quite useful for when you start just auditioning sounds to have your volume quite low so you don't blow your ears off. So I found a sound here that I think would make a really nice intro. Now, because of my lack of processing power in my machine, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce this down straight away. Caution to the wind. I might label the bounce down what the original part was, just so if I need to come back to it, I can come back to it. But the thing to remember when you're exporting, so you're going to render in place, the thing to remember when you're rendering in place is if you've got a sound that has got a large tail reverb, you're going to want to put a little bit of space for that reverb to play out. So what I used to do in the past, you think, okay, I need that 4 bars, I'll render it in place. It renders in place, and once it turns to audio, it just cuts straight off at the end, which is useless. You then have to put reverb and all sorts of stuff on the tail of it to try and make it sound natural rather than a sample. So by putting that little elongated tail on there, and then rendering in place, which is edit, render in place. I render with my current settings at the moment. I've not got any mixing, I've not got any plugins on it, so it doesn't really matter. And there we go, you can see the tail here extends past the point where the note finishes. Cubase then automatically mutes this track, which is useful. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write down here what it was, Pacific Rain, and that is just so if I need to come back and load Serum 2 because I think, oh, you know what, I really want that sound again in a different key or doing something different, I can come back and I can do that. But for now, I'm going to mute that intro or move it out of the way. And then I'm going to carry on using Serum to see if I can find another instrument that I like. Now I know I've started the key in G, so I've just got to remember that. So I'm going to have a little hunt, see if I can find something that I like. Also, quite a few of the sounds I've noticed on Serum and Massive especially, they use fifths. Fifths are quite nice, however they can cause problems when you're trying to write later on. I found this sound I really like. It's quite a lo-fi sort of sound, and it's got fifths in it. But I may just try and mess about with the detune. So I'm gonna lay this in quickly. Let's quantize this up. If you hold down, highlight a note, hold down the shift and then push the arrow keys, takes it up or down an octave. Quite useful. Okay, so we're going to go into that sound, see if we can't take some of that detune out a little bit. I think I found the part that's controlling how much the detune affects the sound. So what I've done is I've brought it down. It was up here and it was flat. It was like that. So what I've done is I've just curved it down a little bit like that and then brought down that so it's less impact at the end. Because I like a little bit of it. But I'm just going to look at the different parts that are in the sound itself, see if I can maybe tailor them a little bit. Okay, so there's a nice sub underneath. That's the main one that I want to kind of keep. We've got the crackle somewhere. There it is. I'll keep that nice and low as well. The other thing with the detune is it may affect vocals a little bit later on, but I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. I'm generally happy with that sound, so I'm going to set my levels now. I'm going to reset the EQ. Let the AI figure out what it thinks is best. So a nice amount of low end in there. I'm probably going to want to bring a bass in later, so I'm going to take out some of this low end, probably to about 60-ish. Then I'm going to find my favourite 300 mark where all the Merc sits. I'm going to drop that a little. Crackle's slightly high, but I might take that off the original. Yeah, let's take the crackle down a bit. I made a decision, I'm going to get rid of the crackle. I'm just going to do a little bit of compression on that. A little too much weight in it still. Bring in some drums. So just going to lay in as a 4/4 for now, just to try and mix it a little. Okay, I'm going to EQ the drums. It's bypassed. A little bit of compression. Let's just mute that so you can hear it. I'm going to take it down so the level's just around the -12, and I've got my drums going out to a drum bus here as well, which has got nothing on it at the moment, so they're going to be quite quiet at this point. Okay, let's go look for some hats. So the first thing I want to do is change the tempo of the overall bit, so it's in 88, we want it to be 126. So do that, you get a little tick when the status is done and it's ready, and you can see it's put it into that 4 bars that we want. Let's do a little EQ. try a tiny bit of Valhalla reverb on it. That's exactly the cleanliness I was going for. Adds a little shuffle, find a snare. Rearrange the kicks a little. A little bit of compression for the snare. That'll do for a basic, so I'm going to test that now with this. Needs a little bit more work. But with that basis, I'm going to now look at the drum bus. Silver bullet on. This is going to punch it. We're going to EQ what's there, although we'll have to come back a little bit later on if we add any other drums, which we probably will. I'm going to put a little high pass here just to leave a bit of room for a sub bass, which I might bring in later. If I don't, I could always free it up a little bit. I'll put a little dip, as always, in the murky area. As long as it doesn't affect the snare too much. Put a little soothe too. Just take some of that low mid out. Steinberg's Cubase vintage compressor. I'm going to kind of keep my output between 12 and 6, minus 12 and 6 that is. And on top of that, I'm putting an additional smart compressor just over the top. That'll do for the drums for now. Let's see if that intro sound would work. I'm going to stretch this intro sound out by sizing applies time stretch up here so that it covers those 4. What that'll also do is it'll slightly digitalize the sound. Try saying that when you're drunk, which might make it a little interesting. This whole thing again, use the range selector, which is right click on the mouse and then range select the second option. That drags the whole selected part across. It's especially useful if you've got things that aren't perfectly on bars, so rather than duplicating parts, Control D shortcut for, you can just get a part like that, Control D, it'll duplicate it. But if there's ever so slightly a difference, go into this, zoom into this, oh, I'll zoom out a bit, either or, zoom into this, and if I didn't have J as the shortcut for the snap, I didn't have that on, I could have made it ever so slightly small like that, and if you duplicate it from a large scale looking at it might look okay, but actually it's ever so slightly off, and so if you duplicate it it'll go further and further off. So let's put the snap back on, pop that back where it should be, but the range select avoids that, so it, you know, if you've got the snap on and you're doing a range select, you know that you've got those 4 bars. Let's see if we can find a bass. So I'm using a nice little 808 sub here. Kicking in quickly, I'm going to fix the lengths, which is you hold down Control, right click, had to look then, functions, fix lengths. I'm also going to fix the velocity because it's a sub bass, be easier to mix if I fix the velocity. I'm going to quantize the ends as well, keep it nice and tight. The one thing I've got to look for now is because of the pitch wobble in that original sound, things might start to sound a little bit weird. sound a little bit odd, but also, you know, it's an 808 sub, so it doesn't necessarily carry the tune, it just kind of carries the weight. So let's add a little EQ. And what I like to do with the bass is if I look at the EQ for my kick and I watch where the kick is, so I draw a little point here, that's where the kick is kind of at its maximum impact, which is 64.7. So what I'll do in the sub is I come in here, 64.7, and then I'm going to do a really tight notch here and drop that right down so that hopefully the sub bass won't really interfere with the kick so much. I'm also going to put my classic 300. Now we don't really need any of the high frequencies, so low pass filter, bring it down quite far, maybe to 1. A bit of compression. So the more I've gone in through this track and the more I've stuck my head in here, I'm just not digging that sound anymore. I'm going to sack it off. I know, sacrilegious, right, but I'm doing it, I'm getting rid of it. Bear with caller. Quite like that, so let's do a little bit of tinkering with this. Bit of EQ, again I'm going to take out some of the kick bit. Some of the frequencies where the kick is, that's what I actually meant to say, the kick bit. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, now I've got this sound in, I feel like the snare needs a little more reverb maybe. Or just some. A little bit of compression onto the synth. And I'm just going to bring the decibels up till it doesn't sound like it's being crushed too much. I'm going to bring the dynamics, so they bring the gain up on that synth. Then we take the snare down a little, volume wise. Okay, now I'm going to look for a pad. Kick it into touch. Just turned up in a fast car, alright. A little bit of EQ. A little bit of dynamics. I'm just going to try and balance off my sub with my drums a little because I need to get the levels of things in a little bit clearer at this point before I get too far away, and I want the sub to cut through, so I think I'll balance this off a little better. Some people don't like to mix as they go through, they kind of like to just, you know, I just want to write, just want to write, just want to write, and then I go back and mix it, and sometimes I do that depending on the kind of flow state of my brain. But I kind of feel like if I get a semi-reasonable mix, I can hear where the kind of space is and where I might want to put something else. Also, after you've done it for a while, you kind of get to know, you know, what you're going to want to bring in and what you're going to want to add. So I'm happy with the bones I've got here initially. So, and I don't want to overcrowd this. The temptation is to kind of bring more things in now there's a bit of space. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and jump onto Splice and see if I can find some vocals. Now I tend to use vocals from Splice as a guide for other vocalists that I will then get to either sing something sort of in a similar vein or similar phrasing, that kind of thing. But often putting a little Splice vocal on makes me realise where I might want a vocal to sit, how I might want it to sound in the mix as well. So we're going to go look at Splice. We're going to go and try and find some vocal parts that are in the same key. In fact, I'll bring this up right now, why not? Here's Splice. I don't know if you can hear Splice. You can. Good. Okay. It's a lovely snare. This guy, fantastic drums. Power Tools presents Mix Ready stuff. Absolutely brilliant. Use it on loads of things. Anyway, but that's not what we're looking for right now. We're going to go look at some vocals. And within Splice, you can determine, you know, genres, key, beats per minute if you really want to. I kind of tend to not bother with the BPM because it limits my search. But I definitely know that we are in G or C minor. I also tend to, as a rule, not use the most popular because a lot of people will obviously be using those. So I tend to put it on random, see what I get. And if I find something that I like, again, do I want a female, male? I am going to go female. We've got it in G minor.
So I'ma light it up just like a cigarette smoke till it's in my head, take it all away. Yeah, I'ma light it up just like a cigarette smoke.
Now I quite like that already. First one I've picked, so I probably should sample some others, but but I quite like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the track in the background, and this is going to sound a bit wonky because they're not going to be in time. But let's just see how it scans.
So I'ma light it up just like a cigarette smoke till it's in my head, take it all away. Yeah, I'ma.
I think that is potentially going to work. So you know what, why try harder? Let's just chuck it in and see what happens. I've used some of her stuff before in some of my long chill. Basically what I do is I only use Splice pretty much, and I'll do like a half-hour chill track, or it mixes in between, so it'll go 3 minutes in a track, then I'll mix it into something else, and I pretty much exclusively use Splice, which I'll do another one. I'll do a video of one of those one day because they're good fun, and when you haven't got it creatively in your head, they're quite fun to do. So we're going to bring this in. I'll put down there for a second. First thing we're going to do, process, time stretch. So it reckons it's running at 127. She's put 135 in the description. So we're going to trust her 135 and we're going to make it 126. See how this scans. It could drag it out too far, but we'll see.
So I'ma light it up just like a cigarette smoke till it's in my head, take it all away. Yeah, I'ma light it up just like a cigarette smoke till it's in my head, take the pain away.
So, don't dislike it. It's not bad. I don't know what these ad-libs are. We're going to have a little look at those in a minute. But the next thing I tend to do before I decide whether I'm going to use this vocal or not is if I click into Christy Young Presents and then look at the key. So we've gone G minor. It's going to see how many are there, because what's annoying is when you find something you think, oh, I really like that, and there's just a tiny little hook. You can't really make a track out of that, just one hook. I mean, you can. But anyway, so there's quite a lot in G minor here, so I'm just going to scan through, see which ones are the same, or see which are variables, see which I think I might use. I'll have that. Might as well have that. That I could use.
It's always better. Boy, you know me, think you know me better.
Yeah. Really what I'm looking for is other hooks. Okay, so I've made a few edits from this. There isn't actually that many hooks, so I'm just going to listen to these edits and see what I get out of it. And if not, I'm going to go back and try and find someone else. I've got all the parts in that I've that I've downloaded, and I'm now just going to change because I can see the BPMs are different in some of these. So this one, fortunately for me, what I've done is they've included in the title the BPM, which is so useful. I'm sure it's a requirement of Splice probably. Process time stretch, okay, near as damn it. Nice. It's always better if the originals are closer in BPM, so you don't get the digital stretch. I know other DAWs I think handle audio a little bit better than Cubase, but whatever. I use Cubase. There you go. Got a little range of things here. Let's see if we can utilize some of these. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put them all into a bus. So right click, now I've selected all the tracks. I'm going to add track, and I'm going to group track to selected tracks. We're going to call that Vox because we're really original. I'm now going to set the levels for all of these. As you can see, when they import, it sets the levels really low. Gain's quite high, as you can see in that graphic, but I am going to set everything back to 0. Now once you've got a gain level that works, you can Control-C, left click in the next one, and Control-V, go to Windows copy and paste, and that should drop the gains. It looks to me, just looking at the visuals, that this particular one is the loudest. Okay, so all the levels are kind of set, which is a good thing. Right, I've just soloed off this main one with the rest of the track for now. And what I'm going to do on my group, my bus, is I'm going to start to bring in a few effects. So one of the things I like to use is Isotope Nectar. Got a bunch of presets in here. You know I love a preset. And we're going to look for something probably around maybe pop, dance, electric. Let's try dance electric. Right, test some of these out, see what happens.
Just like a cigarette smoke till it's in my head, take it away. Yeah.
I'm going to get rid of the harmony that's got in there. I am going to get rid of the delay it's got in there as well. I'm going to take that right the way down.
Yeah, I'ma light it up just like a cigarette smoke till it's in my head, take the pain away. So I'ma light it up just like a cigarette smoke till it's in my head, take it all away.
Not a bad start. Just set the gain on the master out.
Yeah, I'ma light it up just like a cigarette smoke till it's in my head, take the pain away.
I'm going to run an EQ on that. I'm not sure if I've got some pitch correction on that Nectar actually. I should have checked, because I do not want any. I'm just going to take it off anyway. There's a couple of little frequencies I might want to curb.
So I'ma light it up just like a cigarette smoke till it's in my head, take it all away. Yeah, I'ma light it up just like a cigarette smoke till it's in my head, take the pain away. So I'ma light it up just like a cigarette.
Then we're going to put a little bit of compression on there.
Just like a cigarette smoke till it's in my head, take the pain away.
Yeah, I like that. I'm not super married to it. I'm like, not sure. The more I listen, the less I am thinking I'm going to use it. But for now, let's see how it scans across this next section here. And then I'm going to try and maybe introduce some of those.
Let it burn, let it burn, let it burn.
And one of the ones I was really keen on using was this one. So I'm going to mute off these others. I think this was the choral one. Yeah, I wish there was more of it. Maybe we'll try and do a bit of pitch. Let's just do an experiment. So I'm going to take this, what I'm going to try and do is pitch these differently. So we know the first one's in G minor, and then it moves up by 3. Now this may or may not work. We will find out about pitch shift. Transpose, we're going to go up by 3. Let's just see. It did not work. Let's try again. Okay, so I reckon what we might get away with is pitching this second lot. Let's try it up, see what happens. I mean, it kind of works, but let's try something else. Let's try 7. I mean, seems ludicrous. It was.